Perfect. Okay, so to everyone who's just waiting, probably going to start in, well, I think we should probably start now, actually. Welcome to everyone. This is our LTD's second talk of the term. For people who haven't been with us before, welcome. And then hello again to everyone who's a regular member. Just as a quick aside, I'm just going to plug the rest of the stuff the society does. We also have weekly debate sessions every Wednesday from 7 o'clock. You can find the details of all of that, Discord links, Zoom links, or in our on our Facebook page. So it's just Liberate the Debate Sussex. And tonight we have Elizabeth Hobson here with us, who is an anti-feminist activist. She was part of Ladies for Philip Davies and has helped organize a number of men's rights conferences. I think I'll let Elizabeth give herself a bit more of an introduction, just say what projects she's done before, and then just get cracking with the talk. And then afterwards, we'll open up a Q&A so you can shoot some questions Elizabeth's way. But yeah, take it away, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Tom, and thanks to everybody for coming. It's nice to see so many friends round and about. And yeah, so currently, since last May, or well, 2 years ago, I became the Director of Communications for a political party called Justice for Men and Boys and the Women Who Love Them. And last May, our party leader stood down and appointed me the new leader. So that's what I'm up to at the moment. And I'm also working towards the International Conference on Men's Issues 2020, which should have been in a vineyard just outside of Sydney. But COVID happened, so it's actually going to be virtual on YouTube, but it'll still be great, just possibly with slightly less divine wine. I don't know. We might be able to fix that. We'll see.
Thank you very much. I think everything's working perfectly at the moment. So yeah, Elizabeth, take it away with your talk, and then we'll stop afterwards for a little Q&A, and I'll explain to everyone how that works then. So yeah, go on.
Okay, thank you. So, I am a progressive woman and I reject regressive politics. Most particularly relevant to what I want to talk about tonight, I reject feminism. The position of women in the past has included disadvantages that any liberal is glad to consign to the dustbin of history. Denial of the human right to vote for representatives, denial of access to certain forms of education and certain professions, lower pay too often. Women were also at the mercy of nature when it came to their reproductive career. And I would strongly argue that the impact of feminist activism on the progress that has been made in these spheres is entirely overblown in common misrepresentations of history. But regardless of that, I'm here to talk about the here and now. And here and now, the kindest thing that can be said about feminism is that it served its purpose. And if it served its purpose, then I guess we don't need it around anymore. And yet, feminism lingers like an offensive smell. It debases women, it tortures men, it damages the bonds between women and men. It prevents our society from achieving the sex equality that we need, deserve, and owe, both to the brave men and women who've come before and bequeathed this relatively flourishing and free civilization to us and to our children. It destroys vital familial bonds, and feminism kills. I'm not being hyperbolic. If you look at suicide rates, you will find that divorced men are significantly more likely to kill themselves. And given the fact that they're significantly more likely to be unjustly prevented from continuing meaningful relationships with their children, a situation established, extended, and entrenched by feminist lobbying, I, for one, am not surprised. Seeger and Barry found that positive attitudes to masculinity protect men's mental health and even provide a barrier against suicidality. Would anyone seriously deny that mainstream feminism has been concertedly eroding positive attitudes to masculinity for decades? Then there's the Me Too movement, a witch hunt with a body count. From Benny Fredrickson, who killed himself over unsubstantiated allegations, to Carl Sargent, who killed himself over allegations he wasn't even privy to Jill Messick, who killed herself as a result of bullying after she defended Harvey Weinstein. Feminists tell us that women are disadvantaged as compared to men, even in the UK today. So let's just think about that for a while. We're a country that condones forced genital mutilation only when it's perpetrated against boys. We're a country with radical feminist ideologues given free rein to indoctrinate our children with toxic feminist narratives about the apparently innate problematicness of masculinity, and who diagnose in our boys a kind of original sin born from the alleged sins of their forefathers against their foremothers. A country where women dominate university entry and outnumber men in most subjects, but all we hear about is how there are too many men in physics, technology, and mathematics. A country where there are workplaces that prioritize hiring women through quota systems, regardless of whether there may be superior candidates who are men. Positive discrimination for one group necessarily equates to plain old discrimination against those outside of the protected group. A country where men fulfill almost all the dangerous and dirty jobs and constitute 98% of workplace deaths. A country where men constitute 84% of rough sleepers. A country where men are disadvantaged in the criminal justice system, where they are treated so much more harshly on account of the aggravating factor of being born male. A country where too many fathers and children are denied meaningful access to each other when parents separate. These are significant disadvantages to which our society responds with a cultural shrug. All the while, tearing their hair out because Carrie Gracie was paid less money for doing less work than John Sopel. If our patriarchal overlords are really trying to privilege men in our society to the detriment of women, they're sure doing a terrible job. Feminism tells us that it's a movement that cares about men too. But when do you see feminist campaigns against anything that I've just mentioned? And could the reason that people conclude that feminism is about man-hating be anything to do with feminist man-hating? Andrea Dworkin, only when manhood is dead, only then will we know what it is like to be free. Robin Morgan, man-hating is an honourable and viable political act. The oppressed have a right to class hatred against the class who is oppressing them. Naomi Wolf, looking how easy it is to hate men is oddly liberating. Julie Burchill, the most fun part of being feminist is about frightening men. Scaring the shit out of scumbags is amusing and necessary. Feminism tells us that it speaks on behalf of women. Feminists call their movement a sisterhood. Yet the more I learn about feminism, the more I see that its members are overwhelmingly cliquey mean girls ready to throw any woman under the bus who goes her own non-feminist way. I went to feminism for equal rights and sisterhood and found neither. What I found was sisters railing against women solicitors who represent alleged rapists. I found sisters belittling stay-at-home mothers. I found sisters dogpiling glamour models on Twitter, sisters who have successfully achieved the banishment of walk-on girls from many sports events in recent years, because for these sisters, better representation of women apparently means fewer women. As an outspoken critic of feminism, personally, I find that the vast majority of misogyny that I experience comes from feminists. Their latest dog whistle being the phrase, "pick me," which apparently denotes a woman who rejects feminism because she wants to curry favour with men. It strikes me as a blatant form of slut-shaming, which is unbecoming at the best of times, never mind when engaging in it makes you not only unpleasant, but also a massive hypocrite. And what does feminism do for its female adherents? It weakens the women who subscribe to it, makes them neurotic, bitter, dysfunctional, trains women to think in every way that a decent therapist would try to train people out of. Emotional reasoning, letting feelings guide their interpretation of reality, which of course is what would guide the court's interpretation of reality if misogyny is made a hate crime. Catastrophizing, focusing on the worst possible scenario and seeing it as most likely. Overgeneralizing, perceiving patterns of negatives based on single incidents. Dichotomous thinking or black and white thinking. Mind reading, assuming they know what people think without sufficient evidence. Labeling, assigning negative traits unjustly. Negative filtering, focusing exclusively on negatives, ignoring positives. Blaming, focusing on others as the source of their own negative emotions. These are not healthy ways to think, but feminism doesn't care. Women are tools for this toxic ideology. Feminism tells us that it's an equality movement, but how many of its leaders are working class? It's led by middle-class women with middle-class problems and middle-class sensibilities. You just don't hear working-class women crying on Twitter because a brickie called them gorgeous. Because it is led by these women with middle-class sensibilities, though, it has a disproportionately harmful impact on the working classes. The working classes report more socially conservative views than the middle classes, and yet it's their families more than any other demographic that are being ripped apart by the influence of state institutions that penalise low-earning couples for being together in their attempts to support single mums, ripped apart by the influence of feminists insisting that when a woman's relationship is in crisis, it's not a problem worth working through. She's actually definitely being victimized and needs to go nuclear and destroy what's been built, regardless of how proportionate or disproportionate that may be. The good news, though, is that feminism, with its prejudice, bigotry, and consistent campaigns to privilege women, is in trouble. According to the Fawcett Society in 2016, feminists only represent 9% of the population, and just as thrillingly, BuzzFeed and YouGov found in 2019 that a third of young people hold what they consider to be anti-feminist views. For example, that feminism is to blame for making some men feel marginalized and demonized in society. While the movement maintains its stranglehold on many sectors of our society, including the legacy media, more and more people are rejecting feminism every day. In 2017, the Women's Equality Party poured money and resources into a campaign to unseat Parliament's champion for men and boys, Philip Davies, in his Shipley constituency. Mainstream media hammered the message that the man is a misogynist and inflated WEP's leader and candidate Sophie Walker, yet Philip Davies won a resounding victory while WEP lost their deposit. Laura Bates estimates that the manosphere numbers tens of thousands in the UK and notes that we are the kind of people you can pass on the street on a daily basis, never knowing that we hold heterodox views. We are everyday Jane and Joe. We're not feminist and we're not going away. We are dropping pebbles into the pool in all kinds of interactions, from speeches like this one to throwaway comments that we might drop into conversations with friends and family. We are building a public square effect wherein before long, everybody is going to know that feminism is a paper tiger that can be safely criticised and mocked and discarded. And then, when it is commonly accepted that feminism is a toxic, hate-filled supremacy movement, and that adherents to this movement can be sidelined like racists, we can begin the process of healing our society from feminist ravages. We can begin to build on the awesome legacy of the Enlightenment and the classical liberal ideas that have made our society so much fairer, but can still be pushed further. We can have equality of opportunity, equal rights, both on paper and in practice. We can flourish in systems based purely on merit and free choice. We can come back together as men and women, loving and supporting each other. The anti-feminist future is ours for the taking, and here's to the future. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Elizabeth.